All right, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. I wanted to leave y'all with a quick market update as we head into the weekend. There's a lot of things that I want to show y'all as we head into the weekend, so you do your own research and make your own conclusions of what is to happen in the coming week or coming weeks in the crypto market. So here we go, right? First thing I want to talk about is this article written by Data of Innovation. It's on Medium. You can check it out. This was written in July, and they talk about sort of the coincidences as well as comparisons between Three Arrows Capital and DCG. And the reason why this particular article is important is just simply because of the overall structure and investment thesis and strategy that DCG has, as well as their overall relationship with Three Arrows Capital that DCG had pertaining to Grayscale and GBTC. All that stuff is outlined in here. And the reason I'm mapping this out is because over the last 24, 48 hours, one of the big stories that's been right at the front headline is, who else is next in this FTX contagion, right? If you look at the contagion list, this is sort of all the people that are impacted by FTX directly because of, either having their treasuries on FTX or FTX partners had invested in these projects, or bigger funds may have had their money on FTX, or they were directly tied to Solana, which basically got nuked this past week because of FTX being directly sort of associated with Solana and Solana ecosystem. So all these things, right? All these things are incredibly important for us to recognize where we are in the current market conditions regarding contagion, because the next big domino to fall could very well be DCG. And Arthur Hayes, talks about this particular piece that I just posted about. And I want you guys to do your own due diligence and research about how this stuff, if it does pan out in the worst case scenario, is going to impact the crypto markets. I'll tell you guys one thing. Grayscale currently, which is, by the way, a DCG product. DCG, again, Digital Currency Group. It's owned by Barry Silbert, started by Barry Silbert. It is the owner and has big subsidiary connections with Genesis. I think Grayscale is its largest product that it created, and it owns CoinDesk. Of course, it has other ventures, and part of its portfolio is many things like Abra, and I think they were invested in things like Sandbox and Decentraland, all kinds of stuff, right? But the fact of the matter is that this coming week, as well as this past week, what we have is, more and more contagion effects coming out from the fallout of FTX. For example, Multicoin, which is, again, a bigger crypto fund that is being impacted because of what happened with FTX last week. We see the DCG becoming sort of a center, highlight of what could be next in the market in terms of more contagion effects. So if that does happen and Digital Currency Group is in some way, affected in a big way, right? And they may have to dump some of their assets. Remember, they own a ton of Bitcoin and a ton of ETH. Now, I'm not saying that they have to sell this. I'm not saying that Grayscale has to liquidate or anything. I'm just saying that if there's one thing that we've learned over the past few months, it is that in the current market conditions, you don't know who's safe. You don't know who is properly manages their risk until they show you that they have. So unless DCG is out here showing us their balance sheets and their receipts, if you will, well, we kind of got to assume that most of the crypto market right now is really just sitting on edge, and it can easily start cracking to the downside in the coming week or coming few weeks. And if that does happen, then from a price perspective, I'm still looking at this big uptrend the BTC has from a weekly perspective. And we're pretty damn close to that, ascending trend line uptrend, right? Which is, if price does meet this ascending trend line, well, that could be around, 14,000. Maybe we wick like we did back here all the way down to 12,000. If that's the case, I think Solana is probably going lower, right? I think Solana at minimum is, probably going to like $10, maybe $8 or $9. And then after that, then we can start talking about, bigger altcoins like Ethereum, right? From a weekly perspective, I think ETH at minimum goes to $750, $800, and maybe as deep as, $500 or $400 down here. Again, this is the worst case scenario, right? Why am I talking about the worst case scenario? Because the fact of the matter is that we really don't know what are the widespread events that can occur because of all the fallout from FTX. And many people who are talking about markets bottoming because you think that, look at all these people talk about contagion and, all that stuff happened last week. This has to be a market bottom, right? I posted this a couple of days back. There's all these people who have been tweeting over the last several months, whether it's Chim Tzu or Arthur Hayes, Koopa Troopa, or Chris Bernice, right? These are all people who have tried to call the bottom for the past several months. And I would include many, many funds and people that I look up to or used to look up to at one point, and I thought they were super smart. And it turns out that they're really no better than your average sort of crypto investor who's hoping and praying for a market bottom, right? Almost at every price level every month. And yet the market keeps going down against them. And they don't quite realize that maybe something is fundamentally wrong right now and broken in crypto, not in the crypto protocols themselves, but in the investing process, in the forward-looking regulatory process things that are coming out. Maybe those things are really sort of being baked into the price, and we cannot predict how much lower price can go. And so the fact that all these, hopeful optimists have been optimistic for the entire year, talking about, well, no matter what, prices will go down and they'll bottom, whether it was 3 months ago or 2 months ago or 1 month ago or whatever, right? You keep talking about a bottom and prices keep going down. Their only hope is that, at some point it's going to bottom, and at some point Bitcoin's going to go to 50K or 100K or whatever, right? And they may have that ability to hang on to this asset for several years. And by the way, if you're buying spot for 3-5 years out or beyond, okay, these might be great prices, but it doesn't sort of excuse you from looking at the current risks that are being posed towards the market, which is we do have a lot of issues regarding contagion effects happening, and that you must give them, credence and credibility, because those risks could be widespread and they could further bring down prices, especially in altcoin world, right? Ethereum could easily come down another 30-40%. Solana could go down 50 or 60% from here. Atom, Cosmos could easily go down, another 40-50%. AVAX could easily go down to like $10 or, lower, in fact, right? So point is, this is the stuff that you want to be watching in terms of near-term price action, okay? Now, there are other things I posted for Advantage members. So, QCP Capital, again, a bigger fund from Singapore, also mentioned all the fallout that happened from FTX, from, Genesis that's going on, from DCG. And, point is, like, everybody is concerned. And those that are not concerned and those that are shrugging off the concerns and talking about market bottoms and comparisons to last year or a few years back, I either think they're delusional or they simply do not understand how the market has shifted in its regime stance from, when the Fed began to tighten and the, equity bubble and the crypto bubble popped, and to where we are now. Maybe they just don't want to believe that the markets can head lower because they're already down, 70, 80%. Well, being down 70 or 80% doesn't mean you can't go down, another 50 or 70%, right? And most of these assets, it is entirely possible. Trust me, from someone who's coming from the 2018 bear market in crypto, they can go down a lot. Some of these assets will go down from the highs to the lows, almost 97, 98%, from the all-time highs to new lows. It is entirely possible. So I do want you guys to be aware of that. Okay. There is, so this article that obviously you guys should check out, and then this fireside chat with CZ and Mike Novogratz to sort of, look at the industry from a different perspective and how things are growing. And again, even though I'm talking about all the bearish stuff regarding, DCG and this comparison of Three Arrows Capital and DCG, it doesn't mean that I'm not bullish on crypto long run. And I also personally do not think anything related to FTX has, anything to do with the actual DeFi ecosystem or what Bitcoin is all about or what Ethereum has built over the last several years, right? FTX was like a rogue centralized entity that just went ballistic. Okay, I get it. I totally understand. But that doesn't mean that the markets cannot keep breaking down further and further until we shift away from this regime of up only mode to, everybody calling bottoms, every few weeks to then just basically going into almost like a death zone where, the market overall slows down, user activity, investments, all these things slow down. And then maybe 3 or 6 months from now, then we could start the new, leg up in the market, or we've ended sort of a local accumulation zone. And then we start, pushing up in the market. And that regime change, by the way, it might change from assets that were doing well in 2020 and 21. So maybe Solana and Rune and Near Protocol and AVAX don't do well in the next year or two. And maybe it's things like Uniswap or Gains Network, which are DEX protocols where you could trade, right? Or PERP protocol or GMX that Arthur Hayes has talked about, or DYDX, right? These could be the protocols of the future, right? And that could mean that Gains Network, which is right now $100 million market cap, DYDX, which is currently, I think, let me see, close to 280 million, and GMX, which is, I think, close to that as well, right? 330 million. So these are not huge market cap assets, which is great because that means that their future could be very bright. A 10x on GMX is only $3.3 billion, right? But you want to actually see that they have the capability of delivering that, in terms of revenue and users, and people are actually willing to go to the GMX website and start trading, like do actual DEX trading. Right now, I think people are still very used to using things like Binance or FTX or BitGet, right? These exchanges we're used to and we're familiar with. It may take a while for users to get used to things like GMX or DYDX, Uniswap, Sushi, all these, okay? And if that takes a while, then that means that it's going to take that much longer for the market to figure out, oh, these are the protocols that are going to be valuable for the future. Okay. But still, again, I'm incredibly bullish on how the arc of crypto is going to be going forward. It's just simply that you don't want to be calling for bottoms every week or every few weeks just because you think that, oh, well, FTX blew up last week, so that has to be a bottom. Or everybody's bearish, so bearish, and so that has to be a bottom. Well, sometimes in life and in markets, you are reasonably bearish and you have to be reasonably fearful because the entire environment around you, it just looks like it's getting worse and worse. Being bearish at the time of full capitulation when market is improving is a different story than when every week or every few weeks, when news is coming on, things are getting worse and price is getting worse. Well, that's not the same thing, right? That is, you should be reasonably bearish in that sense. Okay. So anyway, I just want to leave y'all with that for the weekend. Obviously, again, there's a lot of news coming out regarding SBF and FTX. Tons of news articles. I listened to a podcast or many podcasts so far that have talked about Sam Bankman-Fried and the fallout from FTX. So it seems like it's slowly hitting the news media. And, that stuff is going to probably start being saturated into the environment by next week, headed into Thanksgiving weekend, which is here in the US. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be discussing at the dinner table, why are prices down? What happened with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried? Who knows? Maybe that might cause like a bit of a panic run, headed into the year end. Okay. So I'll be watching, some of these assets, especially on the lower price end targets that I mentioned. I still kind of want to believe that BTC somewhere around 10 to 12K could be a decent buying opportunity. Again, obviously I would want that in an environment where I know that like DCG is not blowing up. All right. If DCG is blowing up, I don't even know how low the prices can go, because they might have to sell $13.3 billion in Bitcoin or 3.7 billion ETH. Again, these are extreme scenarios, and honestly, very, very low chance that this happens. But like I said, you never know in the current crypto environment. Things get crazy really, really fast. Okay. Anyway, that's all I have. If y'all have any questions, again, you can join the Discord community. The link is below. Come hang out with us. We provide a lot of, information analysis in here. I do a lot of like high risk scalp trading. So if you're into that, come join. Again, not financial advice. Don't copy trade me. All right, that's it. Happy Friday, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Cheers.